Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're talking about President Trump's visit to a project located just down the road from several of our own new development projects. The president was in Lake Charles, Louisiana on Tuesday this week to promote the expansion and job creation opportunities associated with liquefied natural gas. The oil and gas industry in America has evolved over the years from conventional oil, with some of the very first wells in Texas and California. They were relatively shallow wells in fairly porous rock. They produced oil and virtually no natural gas. The more recent shale wells produce oil or gas, and in some cases both. These rock structures have the oil and gas trapped in the rock where it's not very porous, and it's also not very permeable. If you think of rock like Swiss cheese, the porosity of the rock is the size of the holes in the cheese, and the permeability is the ability for the oil or gas to flow between the holes in the cheese, or in this case the rock. In order to get the oil out of the ground, the drillers push water down into the well at about 2,000 psi. That high-pressure water smashes the rock and allows the oil and gas to flow. That's what they call fracking. The oil gets pumped to the surface and is stored in tanks that get emptied on a regular basis. They're transported by truck to the refinery. The gas is much lighter than air and wants to float away. The only way to capture the gas is to pressurize it and transport it by pipeline to a local refinery, which gets rid of the impurities, ensure the gas is of pipeline grade before being sent down to one of the major pipelines. Natural gas is a great source of energy, but it's so inconvenient to handle that the average consumer has trouble dealing with it. Most of the worldwide consumption of natural gas is for the production of electricity, or it's used in heating homes through the natural gas service that's piped through most major cities. If a new well is drilled and is producing gas, chances are high that the operator will flare the gas at the wellhead if the pipeline infrastructure hasn't been built yet. This is extremely wasteful of a scarce resource that the world is frankly running out of. You can often fly at night over rural parts of the country and you can see the flares from the air. It's a pretty sight, but it's also a sign of a tremendous amount of waste of energy. Now, economic activity worldwide is linked to energy. For every unit of economic activity, there's an equivalent consumption of energy somewhere in the world. Natural gas is one of the cleanest ways of producing electricity behind wind, solar, and hydro. Much of the electricity in Europe and Asia is turning to natural gas as a cleaner alternative to coal or oil. For example, in 2016, Spain did not import any natural gas from the U.S. In 2018, Spain imported 29 billion cubic feet of natural gas and growing. France is buying from the U.S., so is Portugal, Italy, and Greece. And Germany just announced the addition of an import terminal on the North Sea. It's a $500 million terminal, and Chancellor Angela Merkel announced that a few months ago. Last year, the U.S. exported 22 million tons of LNG. This export capability was only made possible in 2015 when President Obama authorized the export of hydrocarbons from the U.S. Today, Lake Charles, Louisiana is the largest LNG export hub in the U.S. The export capacity for LNG is expected to grow by several multiples over the next decade. Lake Charles, therefore, is undergoing tremendous growth as a result of these energy projects. It's driving population growth and employment growth. Most importantly, these jobs are not linked to the price of oil or gas. It's all about global distribution. The widening of the Panama Canal back in 2016 also opened up markets in Asia. So what does all this have to do with real estate? Well, we look for opportunities where demand is growing and there's a shortage of supply. The President's motorcade passed behind our Maplewood Place RV park today. We built that facility over the past year to house the legions of construction workers who will be temporarily in Lake Charles over the next decade to build these mega plants. This town needs everything from housing to retail to office to medical. The President's trip to the area is shining a spotlight on the opportunity. We believe that the additional visibility will make the market more broadly recognized in the financial markets. While there's been a ton of investment in the Lake Charles market, not that many lenders have heard of it. The President's visit will bring attention to this market and maybe facilitate future investment. Most of the major capital sources in the country tend to focus on the major markets like New York, Dallas, Los Angeles, the major population centers. Smaller communities don't typically attract major capital as easily, but the addition of major infrastructure projects creates a unique market condition where the economic fundamentals are stronger than would be considered normal for a community of that size. Whenever that happens, I see that as a favorable market condition for investment. But it's not all about Lake Charles. There are many other places elsewhere in the world where major business activities taking place. They do exist, and sometimes they're outside the downtown core of a major city. As always, I want you to look at these opportunities through the lens of supply and demand. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.